Welcome, my friends, community members, and thought leader to our First Friday with a Thought Leader. So I just want to take a moment to share something that's very important to all of us, certainly Alexander, myself, and everyone here on the team, and to the 500 strong active community members on our community platform. I just want to thank you so much for being a part of what we're calling, transformation at scale. The world needs care. The world needs transformation. The world needs help. And we are the practitioners who are there working with leaders to help them. And I just want to take this moment to thank you for being part of the community. And we are growing. And that is why we call our work Transforming Teams. And so today I am very excited to introduce someone whose work has profoundly shaped how organizations and their leaders think about the value they offer to their customers and clients, and what that means to guide people towards something greater, something we all know as practitioners. So Joe Pine is the co-founder of Strategic Horizons, which he beautifully describes as a thinking studio with Fortune 500 and entrepreneurial startups as clients. Joe is also an author of an extraordinary body of work. So it started in 1992 with Mass Customization, the New Frontier in Business Competition, which the Financial Times named one of the 7 best business books of the year. Then came Authenticity, what consumers really want and what we really want for the leaders and the teams that we work with on a daily basis. And then Infinite Possibility, creating customer value on the digital frontier. And then there is the experience economy. So I have to tell you, this book has had a huge, profound impact on my life and my work. It fundamentally changed how I think about what we do here at Corentus and what it means to create an experience that is truly memorable and personal for the people we serve. And with that, Joe, for the experience economy, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And now we have the transformation economy, guiding customers to achieve their aspirations. So I pre-ordered it weeks ago, and I just received an email this week that it's in the mail. So that's awesome. Months ago, I was also thrilled to discover that Joe has been sharing his book on Substack. So I'm proud to say that I'm a paying subscriber to his Substack. So that was incredibly informative. So I got to get a peek into what the book is all about prior to receiving it. So that's great. So on behalf of all of us in this community, we've been waiting so long for someone like Joe to finally say the time is now for transformation. And with that, I bring you Joe Pine.
So thank you for this opportunity to talk. I appreciate your comments and how you value my work very much. I will correct one thing from your record there. The Experience Economy originally came out in 1999, and we updated it in 2011, and that's the 3rd edition in 2020.
We're going to do this interview style, which is one of my favorite ways of engaging a thought leader. So Joe, in some of your writings, you mentioned that you've waited 25 years to write this book. So what told you now that the world is finally ready?
Right. Well, so it actually has been 25 years. The transformation economy was actually talked about in the last 2 chapters of the experience economy.
Yeah.
And people have been asking me ever since, when are you going to write a full book on it? To which I responded that one, the world's not ready for it, and 2, I don't know enough about it, to cover a full book. And as with your comments, it became very apparent in the last 5 years that the time is right, that the world is ready for it. It was just a big, scary word back then. And now, for a number of reasons, the rise of coaching, the fact that we have we have so much abundance today that we don't need to spend all our time and money on getting the goods and services that we want. We've got time to be able to spend on first experiences and then on ourselves in achieving our aspirations and becoming who we want to become. And on the business side, the supply side, even experiences are getting commoditized today to a degree. And so companies recognize there's more value that they can create by helping people, guiding people really is the economic function of transformations. Like you stage experiences, you deliver services, you guide transformations. And there's value there in what they do.
So, do you believe leaders in organizations believe that they need to go through a transformation journey in order to effectively create transformational experiences, transformation for their customers and clients?
Yeah, often that's exactly what's needed. They don't always recognize it, but often they do. It's often the organization needs to transform as well, in particular to becoming guides to understanding customers on an individual basis and what they really need, what they desire, need, and aspire to become. And so that often has it. I talk in the book about there's basically four varieties of aspirants, is actually what I call them, commodities have markets, goods have users, services have clients, experiences have guests, and transformations have aspirants. Not that you necessarily want to use that word with your customers, but they have to become guides to those aspirants and understand them. So the varieties are you can transform people, which can include employees. You can transform organizations, collections of people. You can transform businesses, which is an entity unto itself, and you can transform communities, which can scale up to the world as well. And so all of those are possible. And one of the things I did in the book also, which is different from other books, I did try and reach people on a personal basis to recognize that, hey, you have aspirations as a reader, whether as a business person in your professional life or in your home life, your personal life. And you need to think about what those are and how you can achieve those aspirations and what transformation journeys you may already be on.
Right. So you use the word guide and guiding.
Yeah.
So I love that term. How, how does what does guiding demand from us as practitioners, you think?
It's funny. I was with someone yesterday, Dan Hill, actually, a longtime friend of mine, wrote the book Emotionomics, and he's sort of like the world's experts on emotions and facial coding and so forth. After Ekman, and and we were looking at writing an article together. We're sort of thinking about that and what the emotions are people in going through transformations. And the one of the things we quickly came to conclusion with is what guides need most of all is empathy,
Mm.
to put yourself in the shoes of your aspirants, to really feel for them, and in fact, to put their needs above your own, right? Even as a business, right? As a business, if you're in the transformation business, right, you're mucking around in people's lives, you're mucking around in who they are. You have a fiduciary responsibility to do what's right for them, even if it loses you money or doesn't gain as much money as it could. And that's another thing that they need to understand. And empathy often gets spoken of in trite ways today, and sort of thrown about. But truly having empathy is I think, not just but the core requirement for being a guide.
For being a guide.
Yeah.
So what about being a leader in an organization and or individuals within organizations
Well,
to
the
also
the
have empathy?
yeah, yeah, um, I'm laughing because you bring to mind I did work for a Swiss company once. And we came up, it was Swisscom actually, and with the CEO and all his direct reports, we came up with the meaningful purpose of the organization, and everybody loved it, which was, if I remember right, is your guide to the digital world, right? So this is like 10, 12 years ago, but your guide to the digital world. And the CEO says, it is great, I love it, except in Switzerland, we have to translate, everything has to work in English and French, in German, and in Italian. And the word for guide in German is Führer. And I think, well, there's
Hmm.
got to be some other way you could say it, right? So they can't use that word. And so sorry, that's why I was smiling when it brought to mind that leader as guide, I thought of Fuhrer. But obviously the Fuhrer was a horrible guide. He was an autocrat. And as leaders of the organization need that empathy as well for their people,
Yeah.
as well as for the customers. And again, and so I don't think it changes any because they are the guide of the organization. Uh, they need to have a view of what's going on in the world and how they can be of benefit to that world, through the organization. Um, and the question that I always like to ask leaders is what business are you really in? Right? You need to understand what business you're in. You can sell services and be trans and experiences be transformational. But if you truly want to get in the transformation business, you need to ascend to that proposition that you're in the transformation business. And that's one of the things that leaders have to come to a conclusion to truly get to that level
Yeah.
of being able to transform their customers and their employees and their organizations.
So can you walk us through what call the four rules of the transformation guide? So alchemist, expert, coach, and counselor, and how
Right.
those people can help others ascend.
Yeah, so I define those roles for and I assume you got that off of Substack. You haven't got the book yet.
Exactly, because I haven't
It's
read the book
actually
yet.
right. There's actually on the front page of hbr.org. They did a digital adapted expert excerpt from the book on understanding aspirations and transformations, and they allude to these as well there today on in that article. Um, so I basically defined four types of aspirations and four types of transformations, and then four types of roles that go with that, and
Hmm.
it's based on whether the on the quality of the change, which can be in degree or in kind, right? So let me preface that by saying all transformation is identity change, right? That's why you're mucking around in people. You're changing their identity. You may be changing degree is enhancing or changing some aspect of identity they already have, and change in kind is gaining a new aspect of identity that I take on because of this transformation. That I could say, I was X, now I am Y, and however you might fill those in. And so it's based on the scale of change, as a small scale or as a large scale. So small scale changes in degree are what I call a refinement, that you're refining some aspects of self. And that's where an expert really comes in, somebody who knows their stuff, who can quickly lead you into getting better at whatever it is, or having more capabilities of whatever it might be. And then when it's a large scale change in degree, it's an ambition. I have an ambition to truly change, but it's a long line of a dimension I already have. It could be you could be becoming a better manager. It could be becoming a much better golfer, which could have a refinement. So anything that is ambition can also have a refinement first and then lead into that ambition. And that's where I put the word coach, right? So you might think, well, an expert really needs you if it's ambition. No, you really need a coach more than an expert, because experts are generally, they know their field. But with coaching, you need to treat the whole person, right? You need to work with them on various aspects of it, and there are many people that with high ambition that are high in their field that have coaches that aren't as high as they are, but they know how to coach, right? They know how to guide, and that's the key. On the side of changes in kind, small scale changes in kind, I call a cultivation, right? You cultivate some new aspect of identity, and there a counselor can be of help, somebody that understands emotions and so forth, and understands more, because even a cultivation in some ways can be higher than an ambition because it is new aspects of identity. And then finally, when it comes to large scale changes in identity, new identities, and where you're changing core values and worldview and things like that, is truly a metamorphosis. Right, and metamorphosis, and it's a big, scary word. I don't necessarily, again, use that with clients, but it's the only word that fits. And the thing with metamorphosis is you can never go back. right? You've changed epistemically, right? Who you are, your values, your knowledge, and everything has changed to the point that you are no longer the person that you were before, and you could never go back to being that person that you were before, right? Whereas I could drop golfing or I could drop gardening and not do them anymore and be the same person basically. Um, and I had a tough time coming up with the right word for guide. And I looked at a lot of them, including, there's wizards and Sherpas and things like that. I thought of doing some Latin Greek monstrosity of a neologism, and I did come up with one. They said, yeah, that fits, but no, it is a monstrosity. So I finally came to alchemist, right? So what is an alchemist? An alchemist, going back to the original, is someone who turns lead into gold, right? It is a true, metamorphosis. You're completely changed if you go from lead to gold. So it fits in that degree. An alchemist is also, the chem part is the same where we get chemistry, right? Alchemists actually led into chemistry when they're trying to figure out how to change these things. It led to looking at bonds. So it's actually a big benefit to mankind and people are trying to turn lead into gold. It incorporates all of the other ones, right? If you're an alchemist, you have an expertise that you can share. You are a coach. You can counsel people and so forth. And so also that means that if you can, what I call alter life altering metamorphosis or business altering, organization altering, employee altering, community altering, and so forth. Alter is the key word. I didn't say these before, so I'll say you enhance people with refinement, you expand them with their aspiration, you enrich them with the cultivation, and you alter them with a metamorphosis. So if you can do that, then you can do all the others as well, right? You have all those, you incorporate it. So again, it's what seemed best for alchemist.
I think it's a perfect word.
Oh, good, good. It's one of the most things I was unsure of.
Yeah, we don't use it that frequently, but we would like to. And so,
Mhm.
again, those are, inside practitioner words as opposed
Right,
to, outside, on a, selling words or, sometimes clients get it and sometimes they get scared by it.
right, right.
Well,
Curious.
and Janice, just to
Yes,
jump in just for a quick second,
please.
it just reminds me of the book The Alchemist by Paolo Coelho,
Yeah.
which was a fantastic book that I read so many moons ago that was about this exact thesis. Yeah.
That's right. So curious, Joe, what you think about or any advice on how to help a client and ourselves know what to alter to what, right? So we call it sometimes the current state and the desired state. How do you identify the desired state so they know
Right,
what they're transforming to?
right, right. So I call that from two statements. Right, what you need are from two statements. And it's something you need to do in the first phase of transformations, which is a diagnosis, right? Understand who this customer is, what do they want to become? And then once you have they want to become this and they're here, then you can design the set of experiences it takes to go from here to there. It's never, I was going to say it's rarely, because I'll just say it's never monotonically increasing, right? There's always regress with progress. You have to sense and respond to what's going on. But you do have that basic design of what you need to do. And so that's about understanding their aspirations. And it begins with, or it doesn't have to begin with, but it does help to recognize which of those four types are. But the HBR article that came out this morning that's exactly what's on. It is it's like, do you know your customer's aspirations or what your customer aspirations are? I think is the title of the book. So it's part of that diagnosis to understand what your aspirations are. Now, you may have a very generic aspiration, right? Fitness centers take you from flabby to fit. Smoking cessation programs take you from smoker to non-smoker. Healthcare generically takes you from sick to well, right? Those are very general ones. And at that leader level, you need to know what ballpark you are playing in, what your arena is that you're doing. But you always have an individual living, breathing human being in front of you if you're coaching to individuals and you need to understand them on an individual basis. I'll give you a hopefully quick story that I put in the book. Is actually my mother-in-law many years ago died of pancreatic cancer, and by the time they found it, it was stage 3 or stage 4. They knew she wasn't going to live long. And they talked to her about all the things that they could do to make her last longer, right? So they come from approach of your aspiration is to from dying to live as long as possible, let's say. And that's the approach they came. And very astutely, I thought on her part, she came because she's basically, I've had a nice life. I'm okay with dying. I don't, but my oldest granddaughter is getting married in September. And what I want to do is I just want to live long enough to that point. I don't care about the months after that, but I want to live long enough to that point, and I want to look good at the wedding, right? That was the way she was, and it was beautiful. And that's what they did is they worked on that, and they made sure that she didn't lose her hair and all the things they did. She made it to the wedding, and 2 weeks later she died. Right. So and that part of that I'm sure is like you got your energy going to that point, you made it, and you relax in that. But that was her aspiration, and they did a beautiful job in making that happen.
Ah, that is a lovely story, and important to ask what the aspirations are and to
Right.
coach and or help somebody who doesn't have that clear vision.
Right. Well, but it's generally not enough to ask.
Right.
Customers generally don't know what their aspirations are. It's
Yeah.
something you have to discover, uncover, often in a collaboration. One of the techniques I talk about, famous technique in manufacturing, asking five why, right? So ask five why. So if they tell you that's what your aspiration is, but why do you want that, right? And why do you want that? Until you get somewhere where you can't go any further, right? And that's the core aspirations. You want to know what all the others are that you're doing, but that core aspiration is the one that you need to work on, and you may need to work on the others to lead up to that.
So I have a ton more questions, but I'd love to open it up to the community. So if you have a question for Joe, please raise your hand, um, or throw in a chat if you feel like. But I would love to have you come off mute and share a question or a comment if you wish. Otherwise, in the
While
meantime,
they're thinking about that,
while
yeah.
you're thinking about it, oh, Alexander, okay.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. I love the progression from refinement to metamorphosis, and I think you call it advisor to alchemist,
Yeah.
right? Advisor, coach, counselor, alchemist.
The
My
expert, coach, expert, counselor, alchemist.
coach, expert. Okay, yes. My question to you is in your writing and in your research and your study, did you can we develop through these four roles? Are we born into them? Can we develop? Is there, I mean, alchemist is a pretty high
Yeah,
standard
right, right, right.
compared to coach, which many of us are. Is there a pathway to becoming alchemist? Is it something certain people are and not? What did you find?
I think that in almost any endeavor, there are people who are naturals, right? Just naturally born with that. Now, I say naturally born, but in fact, it does arise from the experiences they had. It's not just nature, it's nurture as well. But by the time they get to that point, they're just really good at it. They're natural at it. But for most everybody, and even for them to get to that alchemist level, does require their own transformation. It does require a set of experiences they undergo that make them good at that. Hopefully, empathy is one of the things that they were born with, but if not, there's ways to gain your empathetic gene over time. Um, so um, so yes, you could actually you can absolutely turn people into, and there's a transformation. Somebody wants to be a coach. Well, you think about Marshall Goldsmith and has his top 100 coaches, and he trains them, and they train others, and you have that aspect where people can become great guides.
I have a follow-up before Jonathan goes. And maybe this is more of a statement, but I sense deeply, Joe, that in the first three levels, there's skills and behaviors and tools and methodologies, but it feels to me that at the alchemist level, there's something that's very deep
Right.
transformation. There's consciousness and there's something deep about that transformation where you become really present to the world and aware.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so I'm pretty fascinated by that.
Yeah, no, I think that's right, Alexander. And And if you think about an organization, again, it also applies to that in terms of the leaders of that organization having that same level of presence of understanding what's going on. I'll mention one other thing I did mention, as I talked about from to statements. But one of the things that my research showed, because that I didn't realize when I first came up with the idea of transformations and named it, is I sort of thought that aspirations are like the bluebird of happiness. They just come down and drop on your shoulder, and you have an aspiration. But in fact, another framework in the book is different catalysts for aspiration. One of the things I found is how so many aspirations come out of trauma
Mm.
that you do have you get cancer, right? That's traumatic. You have a car accident, you lose a loved one, you get divorced. That nobody goes through life without trauma. And in which cases, the thing about trauma is it generally actually changes you immediately. It's a metamorphosis, and you're immediately changed. At least your recognition of you have cancer, for example, that's now become part of your identity. And so you think about it this way, so you immediately drop down with this trauma, and then the transformation is to get back to whole, perhaps
Mhm.
even at a higher level than you were before. And so often, rather than from to, what I discovered is that it's often better to use the phrase transforming into, transforming trauma into this, transforming having cancer into becoming a better person in some way. And so you might think about that also, that alchemist role. If it's trauma, you need an alchemist, and that's something, and that can apply to businesses as well. They often talk in business about that burning platform, right? That you're not really going to change your organization unless you have a burning platform. I've noticed some leaders that like try to create a burning platform to light the fire under employees to get them to change, and that's a traumatic business act. If you're a smaller business, you lose your biggest customer, right? That's traumatic. How do I transform that into having a successful whole business with lots of customers rather than one big one?
Jonathan.
I have two questions, and I haven't read your book or your Substack, so I apologize. My first question is, especially in this world with so much complexity and what people call VUCA or BANI, um, do
I'm
you,
sorry, I
where
missed that. Complexity. Oh, VUCA, yes.
VUCA, or some people are talking about BANI now.
Yeah.
Where in the process do you have to know your to statement? Is it possible that it's something you learn as you go, that you can't know it yet?
Yes, yes. It's very possible that you don't have that. You may have a vague idea of what direction you want to go in and so forth as you start out. And then then sometimes you have the old Buddhist saying that when the student is ready, the guide appears, right? And so you have that aspect of then, okay, then they can help you again uncover or discover what that true aspiration is as you've been sort of floundering around. Recognize too that people, transformation is not a new economic. They've always been around, just like experiences. We lump them into services, but it's wrong. They're distinct economic offerings. And for what's generally been the case, as with all economic offerings, is that at the beginning is that you're your own general contractor, right? And so if I want to get fit, I hire, as the saying goes, I hire organic produce and protein at the commodities level to help me become more fit. At the goods level, I read self-help books. I may get some barbells or something. I buy a Fitbit or an Apple Watch. At the services level, I get the app for the Fitbit or Apple Watch or Oura Ring, whatever it might be, that allows me to track things over time. Now I can see what I'm doing. At the experience level, I may get a membership fee in a fitness center, so I can go there and become more fit. And maybe then I can conduct my own transformation. But of course, transformations, particularly of the large scale ones, are incredibly hard, right? It's hard to do that. And that's where the guide comes in that could then become that general contractor for you to be able to help you with all these things like, that's not the right protein powder. You need this protein powder. You don't need barbells. What you need to do is these exercises, stretching that's really important and so forth. And then they can lead you to that achieving that full aspiration that you have.
Thank you. And my second question, I'm wondering if successful coaching could be seen as doing more metamorphosis than we think. because just helping somebody, coaching them to speak up more or to delegate more often isn't so simple and
Right.
involves looking at identity or something that really does need to transform. Is that a helpful
Yeah.
way of looking at it?
I think that refinement can often lead to ambition, and ambition can then lead to metamorphosis, where you recognize, like, to truly become who you want, you've got to um, um, get rid of things that are part of your identity that are getting in the way, that prove to be obstacles. You may need to gain new levels of identity to be able to truly get what your aspiration is. So it may have been identified as that mission, but hey, there's a metamorphosis there, and then cultivation can easily lead to metamorphosis as well if that aspiration you have grows and deepens, and you may want to cultivate a love of the arts, for example, that you've never really been exposed to, and so you start going to museums and talking to people and that. But then you may say, I want to become a docent. I love this so much, or I want to become an artist myself. And now you got a metamorphosis going on that was fed by that cultivation that you underwent.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks. Bashiko, did you want to ask something?
Yes, I had a question. One of my clients, the female, had a traumatic experiences at work, and so she is kind of broken into pieces. And so, going back to her true self can, for her, can it be a transformational aspiration?
Yes,
But you
yes.
already answered that question, so thank you.
Yeah. I can see how in trauma that can be very the case, depending on what the trauma is, where they need to go back to who they were from that trauma in some aspects of self. Again, the trauma will always have been there, so it won't be the exact same person. We're never the exact same person. You never step into the same river twice, as the saying goes. Um, so thinking about it that way can be very helpful in individual cases.
Julie.
Hi, Joe. Nice to meet you. Um, I'm wondering how we as coaches best transform ourselves on the path towards alchemy.
Phys they say physician heal thyself,
Yeah.
but they also say any lawyer who's his own client has a fool for a client. So get a coach. Is my basic point there. You need somebody with a remove from yourself who can look at it more dispassionately, still with empathy, but more dispassionately, and help you see things that you can't, obviously. So I think that's the key.
So that perspective taking.
Right.
Got it. So do you believe that there's a tipping point necessary for leaders and or people within an organization to be transformed to one level, whatever that means, in order for that organization to be able to authentically provide transformational experiences?
Yeah, I think there is. I'm not sure at the individual level, but then when you've got an organization or a community where you have multiple people, right? That yes, there's a tipping point at which it turns over. And I don't know exactly where that is. I've actually I did a little research, and some people says you need like 70% of the organization. Others say no, you only need like 30% of the organizations, and sometimes it's less. Because once you get those small differences, then people who do not want to change recognize I no longer belong. And even before you get to the majority, I think it is, right? I no longer belong, and start to look around and may leave the organization, and then you can fill them. So when you hire, you always need to have that full aspiration. One of the things that I think is the first step that I would make if I were transforming an organization is promulgate a meaningful purpose. Right? And I didn't say come up with one, because generally you have one, and you have to, again, discover it and uncover it and articulate it and then promulgate it. Well, there's a nice progression there. And get people to ascend to the proposition of this is why we exist in the world, right? Beyond making a buck, right? That's what a meaningful purpose does. And if you do that, than people whose own personal purpose, again, whether they know what that is enough, but there's a sympathetic vibration that says, oh yeah, that's good. I want to belong to that. I want to help make that happen, right? They become better. They move naturally in that, even without coaching. Coaching will accelerate it, but even naturally towards that. Whereas people whose purpose is at odds with that, again, will tend to over time leave. And then you make sure that new people come in, ascend to that purpose. They know going in that this is what we're about. And if that doesn't mean something to you, if that doesn't give your work meaning, then you may be a great person, maybe a great worker, but go work for somebody else, right? Because you'll just get in the way of what we're trying to accomplish. And I think that sort of thing can happen at much more level than 50% of the people ascending to that proposition.
Yep. So Malcolm Gladwell had what, like 15%? Was that his tipping point?
Was it? Okay, good. Maybe
was.
I'll have to remember that then. It have been a long time since I read that book.
Same here. Grace.
Thank you. Yeah, we gather here we're team coaches. So when you talk about the transformation, I automatically think about transformation of a team. This is the most I'm interested in. And unless there's identity transformation, the identity transformation has come first. Then there was a team identity. And I am interested how much of that we see team as a one entity to achieve a team transformation. How much of individuals, the members of a team, their identity change or transformation?
Right.
How the dynamic those of two are related.
Yeah, I think that's a microcosm of the business itself. That you do have a team identity and you got individual personal identities, and one aspect of that is becoming a team. The best in the world. I don't necessarily recommend this methods in most businesses, but the best in the world at that is United States Army. And one of the things they do, of course, is and the Army does this very much intentionally, right? The drill sergeant is their team's enemy, right? They create an enemy that draws people together and causes them to do. They don't excel in going to war because of whatever the lofty goals of the war, or it's far above whatever they're doing. They excel because they want to protect their team and they do it for the team. And that's the same in business, right? You need to have that team identity of who you belong to. And belonging, I think that's a great word for it. It's about belonging. We belong to this team, and you support the team. And if you need to change that team's identity about what it's about, right, and you're going to have to change the individuals and then have that tipping point to be able to change the whole team, unless some team members say, hey, I just can't do this.
Grace, does that answer your question? Does that help?
Yeah, it helps. And then even come up with more questions. Depends on what type of the team, what kind of is a business model or nonprofit, how much of an individual identity, personal identity changes will impact the goal of the team. But I will keep sitting on that question. Thank you.
Right, exactly. You think of it as cascading identities, right? If you're looking at an organization and what's going on, and there can be an identity between the team and the whole of the organization, right? And so what that might be as well, and uncovering those is very helpful.
I see Camille with her hand up, Janice.
I apologize. I've been searching for my hand button and I couldn't find it.
Okay.
Thank you for going old school.
Hey, Camille.
Was she like this?
I know.
Please pick me. I too am new to your work and have really enjoyed this conversation. And I'm curious how you would cross map your book and your mindset around transformation with, say, Bill Torbett's work on adult development. Because ChatGPT tells me there's a huge overlap, but I'd love to.
Really?
I've been looking
because I'm not familiar with it. I talk about things that David Kolb talks about with transformative learning and Jack Mesereau and things like that, but I'm not familiar with him. So that'd be interesting if you could put something in the chat that points me to him. And I could take a look at that because so I don't know.
I'll connect with you on LinkedIn to send you the
Sure.
summary because
Oh, super.
it's fascinating
Very
because
cool.
adult development theory talks about similar changes that
Yep.
cross map with what you're saying. Anyway, I'll send it.
Okay.
Then for what GPT says is you're talking about the same transformation with this
Yep.
with a just slightly different language. But yours is bringing in much more of an understanding of business and how decisions are
Right, right.
happening
I was
there
just going to say
to
what
the
I
larger
what I
system.
know will be a difference is, I'm talking to businesses and I'm talking about business transformations as a distinct economic offering. So all offerings, it's important to think about is that we can always do them ourselves, right? I can have a garden and grow my own organic, produce and so forth, and eat out of that at a commodity level. I can make my own tools of my trade and so forth if I want. I can cut my own hair and clean my own clothes and make my own meals instead of paying other people to do those. And we've always been responsible for the experiences as well. I always like talking about birthday parties, where when I was growing up, my mom would throw the birthday party and make the cake from scratch, right out of commodities. And today we buy store-bought cakes. We go to some place and we spend often hundreds of dollars to have that birthday party experience, even though the best ones may still be when your parents do it for you. But increasingly, what we used to do for ourselves, this is the history of economic progress. What we used to do for ourselves, we now pay other people to do. And that's the case with transformations. And for millennia, we've been responsible for our own transformations and have never got much help at it and have been fairly poor at it. But now there are companies that have arisen, there are people that have risen that can do that better than we can do ourselves. And that's when you see that shift into a new economy where transformations become a predominant economic offering.
Can I ask a plus? Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, Camille, knowing adult development thanks to Chris Wall and Georgetown, you sparked a lot of thinking there, right? As you move from refinement to metamorphosis and you move up the adult development scale. Yeah, so I'll be curious. I'd love to see what Chat said, or I'll check it myself. So thanks.
Ms. Laura Porter.
Hi.
Hey.
Joe, I'm curious, through your research, what did you change your mind about?
Oh,
Great question. I'll mention first of all, since Janice brought up the Substack, is at least 120% of the book is on Substack. Meaning there's a lot of stuff I came up with that decided that doesn't go into the book, or that my editor wanted to get rid of me. So there's that changing the mind of what should be in it. But the biggest thing that I can think of already is what I mentioned about understanding trauma. That I just did not flat out understand how important trauma is as a catalyst for transformations. I discovered many new things, but I can't think of where they overturned something that I had thought before, other than in that one aspect. I did come up with 2 different frameworks for types of transformations that I put on Substack, and I basically said, here's what I like about this one, here's what I like about that one, but I don't know, I don't need 2 of these. And I got feedback that said most people like them both, and then there were some that liked the other one better, but it wasn't enthusiastic for either one of them. So that's where I did go back to the drawing board and come out with a new model. I call it the Delta model in there. That was based. I've got in my conference room on the other side of this wall, I've got a whiteboard wall that my wife painted for me in all my conference room. I love that. And so I spent an afternoon in there just like drawing stuff and thinking about things, writing points and bullet lists and that. And that was a Friday afternoon. Again, about 3 or 4 hours. I called Kevin Doley, a friend of mine, my consigliere area, just to talk about some things and get his reaction. And then I spent another couple hours on Saturday on it. And then on Sunday, in the middle of a sermon at church, boom, it pops full flesh into my mind with Delta model, 3 segments and what they were exactly. It was like instantly. So I figured that was Providence that came out with that. But it is a model that talks about the different levels of experiences, first of all, at the bottom segment of and I assume everybody knows Delta is the universal symbol for change, right? So Delta is, when I abbreviate experiences, I put an X. When I abbreviate transformations, I now just do a Delta. So the first segment is experiences, to recognize that you can have memorable experiences, which is sort of the bottom level. If it's not memorable, it wasn't an experience. Meaningful experiences, where memorable experiences engage who we are, meaningful experiences connect with who we are, and then there are transporting experiences, a discovery in the writing that take us out of who we are, give us awe or get us into flow or transcendence. And then there are transformative experiences, right? We only ever change through the experiences we have. As the old saying goes, we're all the product of our experiences. So so it rises up to that middle segment, transformative, but it's only part of the transformative experience, because generally we don't change through one life-changing experience. Generally, it takes a number of them to get from where we are today to what we want to become. And you need more to create a full offering. And so that's the middle segment of the full transformation offering built on top of transformative experiences. And then the metamorphosis, I said, this is so distinct. You're changing in core identities. That's the top segment of the delta. The nice thing when you break up a delta is the top segment of the delta is also a delta. And so I love that as a model for thinking about how you progress up to be able to do this in this delta model. Which also reminds me of one thing, Janice, since we're getting close to time, that I think is the most important thing for everybody here to understand. Although I'll probably say it and you'll go, yeah, of course, that's what we do, right? Because if you are natural to this, you've been in this, you do this. But I always tell, particularly experienced stagers, that what you really need to do is you need to take each of your experiences, and that includes like your one-to-one sessions with your aspirants, and encapsulate them. And encapsulation is simply my term for a lot of people do naturally what's been very well academic research, and that's a matter of having preparation beforehand that prime for the experience, get them to think about what the possibilities might be, rethink about their aspirations and where they are in the journey. Then you have the experience, and then after, and ideally immediately afterward, you reflect on the experience. Right? What were the highlights of this experience? And you can do this on going to a museum, on any sort of experience you have. And reflection retroactively increases the value of the experience. And if they didn't have an aspiration before, it's a place where you can help them develop that aspiration based on what they had. And then finally, once they have that aspiration, and as those experiences transform them, you need integration. Integration, where you help them integrate that into their lives. Because if they do have this mountain peak experience that transformed them, but over time it dissipates and they lose that, right? So it's only if you integrate that you keep up that level, maybe increase that level, so that you sustain it through time. One of the other requirements of a transformation is it's sustained through time. Otherwise, they weren't truly transformed. If I go through a smoking cessation program, I spent 8 weeks learning how to quit smoking. I stopped smoking, but 6 weeks later, I light up again. I wasn't truly transformed. You need to integrate it into their lives. That's the number one thing for everybody here, I think, to understand. And again, I bet most of you do this already.
And it's always a really good reminder.
Yeah.
Because we go into these experiences that we create for our clients, and they're, everyone, at the end, you're in the circle and was like, that was great. Yeah. Integrating it afterwards is absolutely key.
Yeah, I've got a mea culpa, which is in my career as a speaker and doing workshops in that, I've never done that. Some workshops, yeah, but I always think that 5 more minutes of listening to me is better than you talking to each other, right? I got so much more I could tell you, and I don't have enough time to tell you everything I want to tell you. I'm so guilty of that. And now I recognize, nope, everything I got a 15-minute speech coming up. I'm not doing reflection, but I got a workshop after for some of the people, and they get reflection, right? That's the first thing they get on what I spoke about. And it's just so incredibly important. So I do preparation, I do reflection. You showed up at the beginning, Janice, of my Substack, the preparation, right? The book opens not with an introduction or preface, but with a preparation. Right. And I published it on Substack, ending the day before the book came out, so that you could read that and hit the ground running in terms of getting the book. And I end not with an afterword or an encore, as we talked about with the experience economy, but a reflection. And every chapter has a reflection for that chapter and a preparation for the next chapter. And integration we do on our website. Like, so even if I want the book to be transformative, so you have the reflection, the preparation reflection, and go to our website at strategichorizons.com/integration. And then we've got tools and things that you can use there to help you and integrate that into your lives and into your business and into your clients' business.
So I highly suggest, so I've already been dabbling around, more than dabbling, over the past few months of your work. So thank you so much. So thank you for the reminder of that we are in the transformation work. This is, this is our job. This is what we do. So for the last question, I'm an optimistic, hopeful person. Your book coming out saying we're going into the transformation economy makes me very hopeful that there is a possibility for humanity, greater humanity on this planet. What words do you want to leave with us in today's world?
So I'm very hopeful in that regard. Chapter 2 of the book shows that hope, and it talks about human flourishing. That capitalism, business, the raison d'etre is human flourishing, right? You need to foster human flourishing for your customers, for your employees, for the community, for society, for the planet overall. And I'm not the first voice on that, and hopefully the book does well enough. I'm not a lonely voice on that, and it's going to take decades for people to realize, yes, GDP is a great measure, but a better measure is how well are our citizens flourishing, and how well is the world flourishing. And I am optimistic that we can go down that path and get to that point, because if you don't, as a business, if you don't foster human flourishing, you're a racket.
Ooh.
And on that note, I ask everyone to come off mute and clap, because that's.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Spicy,
That's
spicy.
That's great.
Nice
That was
close.
a great final quote.
Absolutely.
Yes,
So, Joe,
there are
thank
a
you.
lot of rackets out there, as Julie says.
I know. Not just in commerce, everywhere.
Right.
So thank you, Joe. Seriously.
My pleasure.
Thank you for helping me, so much years ago with the experience economy, and now with the transformation economy. So can't wait to dive into the book. Thank you. Thank you, everyone from the community, for being here, showing up. I appreciate you. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you, Joe.
Have a great February.
My pleasure. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.